Hey everyone, welcome to another video. In this video today, we're going to be going through the CrowdSec for Absolute Beginners Workshop version 3. In this version is now hosted on a platform called Killer. So if you don't know what Killer is a easy replicatable environment website, and it can have a guide running alongside it where you can click on commands and they will execute in the terminal to the right hand side. We chose this platform just for the general ease of it and how good it is in interacting with yourselves as an audience, just because you can also sit through a video like this, go through the commands with me, or if you want to, you can just steamroll ahead, go into the link in the description, and you can just run through your own pace if that's what you want to do. So, as I said, in this video, we're going to walk through it together. We're going to go through what CrowdSec is, how to install it as an agent, how to work with the Cscli tool, and how they both fit together through the terminal. If you like what you see in this video, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up because it helps us in the long run. Whilst you're down there, hit the subscribe button. As stated previously, all the links that you need for this video are in the description, so head down there. We'll make sure that we put the chapters in there also. So if there's a specific roadblock or an issue that you're having whilst you're going through alone or with me, then you can revisit those in the chapters down below. I'm glad you made it this far in the video. So this is going to be the start of the workshop. So make sure that if you want to run alongside me, that you head down in the description now, click on the first link. It will take you to exactly this page. You may need to sign up for an account. So in doing so, you'll get access to the scenario file. You can sign up with GitHub or Google Auth. It's just a way for you to authenticate to make sure that you're not a robot and you're not spinning up things you shouldn't. So, as stated, in this workshop, we're going to run through what CrowdSec is, the agent as well as the Cscli. So let's preface this of how you can interact with Killer. So on the left-hand side, there is the instructions. So this is just like a text file you'll just read through. And then on the right-hand side, there is a terminal. So this terminal has two machines, or this scenario has two machines. One that's called control plane, and the one that's called node 01. The differences that you need to know at this current moment is the control plane is the machine that we're going to be installing CrowdSec on, and node 01 is going to be our attacking machine, so we can make sure that once we've installed CrowdSec, we can verify that the engine is working correctly. So I'm just going to start on the left-hand side. So as stated, in this workshop, you'll learn how to set up CrowdSec, set up some bouncers. So in this example, we're going to be setting up the firewall bouncer and also the Nginx bouncer. We're also going to be taking a look at the Cscli tool. So this tool allows you to interact with CrowdSec and do admin tasks that you need to do from the terminal. We're just going to focus on the essential aspects of this to make sure that you understand how the IDS component and the IPS component work together. Following on from that section, we have what we call the CrowdSec taxonomy. Basically, in short, just words that we use that don't really make much context outside of within CrowdSec. I'm not going to run through each one of these. Pause the video and read through this taxonomy, so you just make sure that you understand that when we talk about a bouncer, you know exactly what a bouncer is in the context of CrowdSec. Once you've unpaused and gone through there, then you'll hit the start button at the very bottom just to get rocking and rolling on this adventure with us. So in step 1, we're going to be going over a basic installation of CrowdSec. So for most people out there, this will be the way that you would install CrowdSec through our package repositories. However, If you have a more advanced setup, such as Kubernetes, Docker, or any other way that you would like to run CrowdSec, head over to the documentation page, which is docs.crowdsec.net, and you can read all about those different setups over here. But just for this workshop, we're going to be just focusing on the repository installation. So at the very top is the command that will curl out to our package cloud repository. Grab the script for Debian because the control plane is running Ubuntu, and it will just pipe it to bash. We wouldn't normally recommend that you pipe it straight to bash. Please download this file, vet the file contents for yourself, and make sure that you're happy with it. However, for this workshop, I'm just going to inform you to click this button, and it will execute into the terminal on the right hand side. So as you can see, there's no need for you to type out commands. You just click on the left, and then it will then execute on the terminal on the right hand side. This is just for general ease. Great, now the repository is set up and ready to go. Because we're running Ubuntu, we can just do apt install CrowdSec, because we've already installed the repository, so we can install it from our package manager that's on the system. Great, now CrowdSec is installed and ready to go. However, I would just like to take your focus just into the terminal, just to see exactly what has happened to the system when you install CrowdSec. So when CrowdSec is installed, it has a post-installation routine that it runs, which we normally dub as service discovery mode. So in service discovery mode, it will try to detect what services you are running, e.g. web server, email server, that kind of stuff. And it will try to detect the log files and then automatically set up the acquisition and the collections. So you can see here that inside the terminal, there's three info commands here in a different shade of blue. And you can see that it's installed the Linux collection because I'm running Ubuntu. It's installed the Nginx collection because I'm running Nginx on this control plane for the Nginx bouncer. And then we're also running the SSH terminal, so it's managed to pick up that we are running an SSH server. These are the key things that I just wanted to point out. So if you are running a service such as Apache or anything like that, and you don't see it in this list, it's just because it's tried to detect where the log file is, but your configuration may have deferred from the defaults. So you will have to go in and set this up manually. However, we're not going to be covering manual acquisition in this workshop. This is just giving the basic overview of what CrowdSec is. So following on from installing CrowdSec, we're going to be now installing the two bouncers that we need for this workshop, which is the firewall bouncers IP tables and the CrowdSec Nginx bouncer. So for this, you're just going to click on this command, and then it will automatically run it for you. Great. That's the two bouncers installed now. So we can now move over to the next section. In this section, we're just going to be covering over a new feature that was added in version 1.4.2. So by default, CrowdSec uses a SQLite database that's installed into the data directory. That's if you want to run it in SQLite. You can use MySQL, Postgres, but in this workshop, we're just going to keep it to the defaults. So in version 1.4.2 and above, we implemented a SQLite feature called WAL, which stands for write ahead logic. So because we don't know everybody's environments, by default, this configuration is not provided. So as you can see in the right hand side here, you can see that you are using SQLite without WAL warnings popping up. That's because we need you to set it firstly to either true or false to get rid of those warnings. So in this workshop, we're just going to set it to true. The only reason that you would not set it to false, would be if you're running your SQLite database in a network attached storage, a NAS. If that is the case, you would change it to false because there's some issues with writing over a network. So you're just going to click the command, and then it will automatically write the config and restart the service. Great, now we've got CrowdSec installed with 2 bouncers, as well as we've done the optimization for CrowdSec itself to use the WAL support for SQLite. In this section, we're going to be running over some CSCLI commands that you can run. And just so you can get generally used to the CSCLI syntax, because out of the box, if you don't use it on a daily basis or don't use it at all, then obviously you don't know what commands or what options you can provide it. So in this section, we're going to go over how to give your shell the completion support. So when you do CSCLI and you hit tab, it will offer you the available commands that you can run. So we're going to click this first command. What that will do, it will spit out the CSCLI completion in front of you, but it will also write a file to the bash completion directory under the CSCLI. From there, because we've now added a new option to bash to have this completion support, we need to reload our environment. The easiest way to do so is to run this source command under bash rc, which will reload our environment. Once that's done, I'm just going to hit Control and L in the terminal just to make sure that we have a clean screen to work with. So now if you type CSCLI with a space and then hit tab twice on your keyboard, you'll now see that you're offered multiple options here. However, these options at the moment wouldn't make much sense, so I'm just going to go over some of these options in the next section. So what I recommend to do in the first place is just to run CSCLI with no options whatsoever. Hitting enter, you'll be offered the help syntax, which will show you all the available commands that you can run after CSCLI. For example, let's focus on collections, because that is the one that most people work with when you want to install a collection. So in this command, you will run CSCLI collections, and then there'll be a sub command afterwards. The CSCLI tool is meant to be self-expressive. So if you want to work with parsers, then you will go to the parsers section. So CSCLI parsers. If you want to work with collections, you'll go to the collections section. And that's how you would do the administrative tasks for those sub commands. If, however, at any point you don't know what commands or what arguments you can pass to a command, if you run CSCLI and then parsers, if you follow it with TACH, which is the help command, it will offer you the help command also. Also note as well is that if you have a command such as a subcommand, so a command to parsers is list, to list out your parsers that you have here. If you also follow that with TACH, it will give you the options that you can pass to the list subcommand. So for example, you can pass the TAC-A flag to parsers list, which will list all the collections available to your system. Great. Now, since we know some basics about the CSCLI tool, there is some examples that you can follow here, which is basically working with collections. However, since you know the fundamentals that you can pass the help command, you go from a main command to a sub command, you should be able to go through and see what each option does. However, if you just want to read the documentation without actually typing the commands into the terminal, you can head over to docs.crowdsec.net, click on the CSCLI at the very top, and then there's a whole bunch of documentation about the commands and what each command does, if you don't want to run it on an interactive terminal. So for this, I will just let you run through these collection examples, so please pause the video here. Once you're happy with working with the CSCLI tool, just resume the video and we'll move on to the next section. Hey, so if you paused the video, welcome back. If you didn't, then we're going to be handing over to the handling decisions. So this is the most important thing, I believe, for the CSCLI tool to handle. So when you're with CrowdSec, you may find at some points there has been a decision made against an IP address that was either a false positive, or you need to remove a decision because it's interfering in some, like a customer or a user in that way. So what we're going to do firstly is we're going to add a decision, because this environment is off the network, so there is nobody currently attacking this box. So firstly, this first command, CSCLI decisions add, will add a decision with the IP address of 1234. So let's just add that currently. You can see, you can confirm that this command has run correctly if you see the decision successfully added. If you don't see that, then there may be other issues that you have on your system. We can confirm that decision is currently active if we run CSCLI decisions list. Then you'll see that you'll have this output here. So this output on my terminal, because I've zoomed in so you can make sure that you can see it on the YouTube, is kind of a little bit like disjointed. So I'm just going to do output raw, just so we can see the actual commands. So you can see here that it's got an ID of 14976, and it was a manual ban from my machine ID. Don't take any notice to this machine ID. This is just a jumbled up one just for the workshop. And that we did a ban, and there is 3 hours and 59 minutes left on this ban, just because by default we do a 4-hour ban. If you need to remove this decision, there is 2 ways you can do this. You can either do it through providing the ID, so the ID in this context is 14976, or you can provide the IP address 1234. Normally, I would suggest that you run the delete command with the IP if you know the IP, just because when you've been running with CrowdSec for a while, you may find that running the decisions list commands brings you back a lot of entries, and you don't know which ID in particular it is. So running just a delete with the IP is best. So I'm just going to click on the CSCLI decisions delete command. You can now see that we've managed to delete 1 decision. And if I clear the screen and then we rerun the CSCLI decisions list command, you'll now see that I have no decisions. So if I rerun it again without the raw tag, you'll now see that I get the output of no active decisions. So currently there is none. Heading over to the next section, we're going to be talking about how CrowdSec can be ran in 2 modes. So there's the active mode, which is where it passes logs live and then makes remediations in live mode. However, CrowdSec can also be run in what we call cold log mode or forensics mode. So what this will do is it will spin up CrowdSec as a process, run the logs through the same channels that we have normally, and it will spit out the decisions that it would have made if it was going over the file live in the process. This can be useful if you want to trial CrowdSec and you want to just run it over some logs that you have, just to see what CrowdSec would have done for those logs at the time. Or if you're a threat hunter or a OSINT, or you've got some logs that have passed on from a client and you need to know what IP addresses are of interest to yourself, so you can run CrowdSec in this way. So if we take a look at the syntax, so we run the CrowdSec binary, we don't run CSCLI in this mode. So you run CrowdSec with a DSM flag. So this DSM flag, I'm not going to go too into details. Just note that it works the same as like a URL. Whatever you pass at the front, so in this case file, means that we're going to be using the file acquisition module. and then we're going to do : // and then anything after those slashes is the path to the file. So in this example, I've already pre-generated a log file, which is an Nginx log file called pwn.log, and it sits in the root directory of this account. Because it's Nginx, we're going to pass it an argument of a type, which is Nginx. And you also note that we also pass another flag called no API. The reason that we're passing this in is because CrowdSec is currently running as a service on this box. So we need to make sure that it doesn't try to spin up a new API endpoint, because we're just getting an error saying that the port is already in use. So clicking on this command, you'll see a lot of output, because CrowdSec by default is very verbose. So it tries to inform you about everything that it can get. However, the key things to note in this output is when you see the word IP and the IP addresses that it comes afterwards. So we can see here that this IP address has been noted for HTTP generic 401 brute force, as well as the IP address below 173 address has also been noted for the 401 brute force. It's key to note that the timestamps for these attacks are quite old. So if you see this one was on the 27th of December last year, and this one was also on the 5th of January this year. Heading on to the next section. In this section, we're going to be talking about how we can optimize the Nginx bouncer. So by default, the Nginx bouncer operates in what we call live mode. So in short, live mode, when a request comes into the server, live mode will send a request from the Nginx process to the CrowdSec local API, the LAPI, and it will test to see if that IP address currently has a decision against it. If it does, then it remediates it. However, if you're running like an e-commerce business or a business that has quite a lot of traffic, live mode is not very performant to handle these cases. If you're running like a small blog or anything where you can handle these types of traffic, then it's perfectly fine to run in live mode. However, in this example, we're going to be changing it over to stream just so we can cover it as a topic in this workshop. So we're going to hit this command, which is basically going to open nano and go straight to the nginxbouncer.conf. Clicking on that nginxbouncer.conf command will open up the configuration file in front of your eyes. What we need to do is head down to the section that says mode. And what you need to do is change the live command to stream. In short, what this does, instead of the Nginx process sending a request to the LAPI every time it gets a request to check if the IP address has a current decision or not, what stream mode does is that it asks LAPI on when Nginx starts up as a process for all the current IP addresses, and it holds it in what Nginx calls like a hash map. This is performing in two ways, because when the Nginx process needs to check if the IP has a decision against it, it already has it locally. However, there's one caveat to that. You may see above it there's a option called update frequency, which is set to 10. So what this will inform the process to do is every 10 seconds, it will send a request to the LAPI to say, have you got any new or deleted decisions for me to handle? If it does, then it acts on those decisions, either adds or removes them. The one caveat I need to point out here is, let's say an attacker is attacking your HTTP service. A decision is made against it. However, it can take up to 10 seconds before they are fully remediated. So we're just going to save this file by hitting Ctrl X, press Y, and then press Enter to save. Once that's all saved, we then need to go and reload the Nginx by clicking on this next command just below the blue boxes. In short, what this does is Nginx-T tests the configuration files to make sure they are valid. If they are valid, because of the AND clause, it will then reload Nginx. So clicking on this, we can see that the syntax is okay, and so it has reloaded. Next, we're going to moving on to configuring CrowdSec to handle HTTP bans differently from just normal like SSH brute force or anything like that. The reason that I want to do this is because I run an e-commerce business and I want the ability for users to self-remediate if they are banned, because I don't want to be losing business as an e-commerce business, because I want to make sure that I get that sale. So in short, what we are going to be doing in this next command is we're going to be inserting a profile above the default IP remediation, which will say if this scenario has the word HTTP in it, then provide them a captcha instead of just blocking them access to the port. So I'm just going to click on this now. Once that has run, I am then going to less the etc CrowdSec profiles.yaml. So you can see here, this is now the new profiles.yaml that I have. So at the top, we have a captcha remediation. So it will detect if the scenario contains the word HTTP, then it will do this decision instead, which is give them a captcha instead of blocking them. The reason that this is best case scenario for a business that's e-commerce or has some sort of way, or wants some sort of way, for the users to self-remediate, is when they go to your website, by default, if you're running the IP tables bouncer, when they hit enter, they won't see that they are banned or the reason why they're not getting to your website. So in short, that is a bad user experience from e-commerce perspective. That may be something that you want to do. If you want to make sure that they are banned, then obviously don't do this. But if you want to give them a web page that says, sorry, we can't serve you at the moment because of your IP address has been marked as like blocked. Great, now we can head on to the next section. So as you can see on the left hand side, there has just been a command that's just been run. Don't pay too much attention to that. What it's basically doing is it's removing the default whitelist that comes with CrowdSec. So CrowdSec comes with a default whitelist for private IP ranges, and because this is in a workshop's control setting, we only have access to whitelists. So this section is going to be about testing our current configuration to make sure that we can remediate an attacker at that point. Whoa, what? Whoa. Now we're going to get our hacking mode on. So in this section, I'm going to be going over how you can test your instances of CrowdSec. I thought I'll get suited and booted, so to speak, for the role. So in this section, just a disclaimer, anything that you learn in this section is solely meant to be used in the context of this workshop. So do not go around attacking other people's machines that you don't have permission to do so. This is clearly something that you should not do. If you want to test your own boxes, then you can use what you've learned here, but you need to have explicit permission to test those ones. So before we start, what we're going to do is we're going to tail the CrowdSec log within this shell. So make sure that the shell says root at control plane, and you're just going to hit the first option, which is tail. What this will start doing is this will start tailing the log file for you. Then we're going to open up a new shell so we can connect to our attacking box. So up here, next to tab 1 that you can see, there's a little plus button. It's really hard to see, but if you hit this, this will then create another shell for you to log into. So hop over to tab 2. So there's a weird thing that when you hit the plus button, it doesn't automatically send you directly into the shell. You have to then click the tab again to go into it. So what we're going to do is log into our first node. So this is the first node, so SSH node 01. This is the attacking node. Clicking on this, you will log straight in, and you'll notice that there's no password to log in. You just go straight in, but now your terminal has changed to node 01 and a $sign. Great, that means we're on the attacking box. Next, what we're going to do is we're just going to run apt and install Nikto and Hydra. Nikto is a web app scanner. So what that will do is just do HTTP requests to the web server to test for common vulnerabilities that are known to the Nikto security system. Hydra, on the other hand, is a multi-purpose tool that can emulate brute forcing on multiple different services. In this context, we're going to be using it for SSH. So if you click on this, what you'll notice is that it will try to install them, but because I have a script that runs at the start of this scenario that automatically installs these dependencies for you. But I would like to just click on it just in case if there was any error in the script, that you just make sure that they are definitely installed. So the first thing that we're going to emulate is we're going to emulate an SSH brute force. So we're going to click on this command here. Make sure that you're running this command on node 01, because that's the box that we're going to simulate the attack from. Clicking on this, what you'll see is that it will start doing the attack. However, you'll see that it was trying to do 26 login tries, but it kind of failed really quickly. If we click on that again, what you'll notice is it will look like it's running. However, we're not getting any feedback against the box. So if we head back over to the first tab, you can see that CrowdSec has managed to detect that this attack is running, and it managed to detect the attack within 500 milliseconds. That's pretty cool. So we can see here that IP 10.224.27.222 performed these two attacks. So within 600 milliseconds, it managed to read the log files and also put the block in place so this IP address can no longer connect. You can further ensure that this has been detected. If you run CSCLI decisions list, you'll see that the decision has been acted upon, and it is also in the decision list, and that my attacking box currently has a ban timer for another 3 hours and 58 minutes. However, because I want to try the Nikto Web Scanner now, I need to remove decisions and make sure that I retail the CrowdSec log so we can also see when that is detected. So what I will advise you to do is hit Control and Alt on your keyboard so it just clears the terminal. Then click on this next command, which will delete all decisions with SSH and delete all decisions with slow brute force SSH, and then retail the log. Don't be worried about how many decisions it deletes above. That's just because I'm deleting by scenario name, and I have this scenario installed, so I receive the community block list with those other scenarios within. But because this is purely a workshop environment, there's no risk that deleting these decisions will lead to an attack. So we're just going to head back over to node 01, and we're going to rerun the same Control and Alt command just to clear the screen. Now I'm going to do some trickery, technical trickery within the SSH terminal. So to be able to see the capture or the ban page for Nginx, obviously I'm going to have to be sending a kill request as node 01. However, I don't have direct access to run a web browser within node 01. So what this SSH command does is it opens a port 8080 on the node 01 machine, and whenever a request comes into that 8080 port, it would then be tunneled / forwarded across to the control plane port 80, which is where Nginx is running. So this is just a simple way for you to connect to Node 01 through a proxy port, and then it will then forward that request over to the control plane so you can see the capture. So all you got to do is click on this, and what it will look like is it will look like you've just basically logged back into the box, which technically you have done, but now there's one difference. If you run SSLNTP, you'll now see that there's an SSH which is listening on 8080. So that's the port that when you hit it, it will be forwarded across to the control plane port 80. Next, we're going to be running the Nikto command. So hitting Nikto. If you've never run Nikto before, what it basically does is it just checks for common vulnerabilities, and it basically comes up with what it can find. So because we configured our Nginx instance to stream mode, it can take up to 10 seconds before I can see a capture page. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is just run the Nikto command one more time, just so I can give it enough time to propagate the command. So when I click on the link down below, it will show me the result. So from here, we can now click on this blue link button. So if you can see where my mouse is, you can see that, and we're going to click on this. And now you can see that we've got the Nginx access forbidden page. So the request has now been forwarded over to control plane, but control plane sees your IP address as the attacker. Pretty cool, right? So this is what I wanted to show within this section of hacker mode. So hacker mode, this is what I wanted to show, because now we've tested it, we've ensured that our CrowdSec is working correctly, and it does manage to take decisions correctly. Whoa, who was that guy? The next thing we're going to do is be talking about how to view your data that's outside of your instance. Because obviously, if you want to keep your data, if you want to view your data, obviously you got to SSH into your box, view it that way. However, we provide a SaaS model for our console. So we do offer a community plan. So you can join the CrowdSec console just to view your instances, view your alerts. However, there'll be some wicked premium features coming shortly that I'm sure you will want to hear about. So what we're going to do is we're going to sign up to the CrowdSec console. However, I've already done this because obviously I work for CrowdSec. I've already got an account. So you would just hit this CrowdSec console button. You'll be offered to go to sign up. Just sign up as you would do normally. And then I'll join you on that page here. Great, now we're both in the console together. For me, I do have a personal account as well as having a organization account called Dummy, which stands for like dummy account. So we're just going to be running through these steps here. So we don't need to install the agent and we don't need to install the bouncer. We've already done those. The next thing that we need to do is enroll the CrowdSec instance. Just an FYI, this key at the bottom is going to be removed, so do not use this key. You will use your own enrollment key. Make sure that you keep it secure because it's unique per account and you shouldn't be leaking it to others. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this command, head back over to the console, and I'm just going to paste this command in. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste this command into the terminal. As you can see, it says instances already enrolled because I've already done this. So what you need to do is rerun the command, but with the overwrite flag. Once that's done, it's all good and proper to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do systemctl restart CrowdSec. The reason that we need to do that is we need to make sure that the instance relogs in and manages to send up the metadata that it needs to. Once we head over to here, you'll see that the instance is already showing. and accept it. Once we log in and click on the instance, so in the instances tab, you'll see now that we've got 22 alerts against the instance. Hitting that will now log you into the instance. So now you can see all of the alerts. So I'm just going to briefly walk through this console because there is multiple things that you can do within this console. So I'm just going to scroll down and you can see here that the IP address that we had for our instance, even though it was an internal IP address, the alerts still propagate up to the console. However, obviously because they're private IPs, we don't distribute them to the community block list. So what I'm going to do now is I'm hopping over to my personal instance, just because I want to show you some real life data in the console, because obviously the data that we had from our instance is obviously just fake data. There's no real actionable intel on there. So my instance currently, that's hosted on my cloud provider, currently has about 3.18k alerts. The reason for the alerts being so high is I run a tar pit service alongside my normal services. So if I detect anything in my tar pit, it automatically propagates that decision through to the rest of my services to make sure that everything is protected. Clicking on my instance, you'll see that I have one persistent IP address from China. We have another one from China, and the other one is from the USA. So because I run this tar pit service, as you can see, Endless SSH is my tar pit service. I have a lot of alerts that are just on tar pitting, just because it's run in a separate container, so it doesn't actually get blocked by my bouncer, so they can try it as much as they like, which is quite useful for my other services, because once I have a decision from my tar pit, it propagates and protects the rest of the services while they're just wasting their time on the tar pit. Scrolling down, you can see here that we have the decisions. So we have the Endless SSH brute force as stated before. So as you can see, this one from USA has tried multiple times in a row within the same minute to get into the service. If I click on the IP address, it will now give me extra information about the IP address. So scrolling down, you can see that there's dangerous services exposed on the IP. It's also already in the community block list, so this is a known bad IP address. So if my bouncers were set up correctly, if I didn't configure my bouncers to not block the tar pit service, then this IP would have never made it to my services in the first place. Scrolling down a little bit further, you can see that this IP address is purely being used for SSH brute force, nothing else. You can see that they started to attack mid-January, and then they kind of went a little bit dormant, and then all of a sudden, from that point onwards, they've been running. Most likely, this IP address is actually somebody's IP. They might have maybe got hacked at this point. They tried out like attacking, then they went dormant and waited for the next victim, and then now they've just been constantly hammering at the door for the next so many days. Following on for the next section, you can see that the top targeted countries for this IP to attack is the US, then Germany, then France, and then all the way down to the bottom. You can see that GB is kind of sixth in the list. So if my signals are only accounting, if everyone's signal from the Great Britain is only accounting for 4% of the total signals that we're receiving about this IP is very, very aggressive. Great. So I'm going to head back to my instance, back to my instances, back to my alerts, so I can see everything. So this was just a quick overview of how the console operates. I'm just going to leave a card that up in the top right it just has a little bit more information about new features about the console, just because I can't cover everything in the beginner's workshop. Great, and that's it. We have just gone through the beginner's workshop version 3. As you can see, it's very, very basic. We just go through how to install, how to test your configuration, how to work with the Cscli Ally tool, and how you can enroll that instance into your console so you can make sure that you're getting alerts outside of the system so they're easier to view. So let's say if you're out and about, you can just view them on your phone. If you do have any issues or experience any hiccups during this workshop, in the link down below in the description, I will leave a GitHub link to the actual scenario files that I use to generate this on Killer Coder. So if you do have any issues, open an issue against that, and I will try my best to respond to those issues, depending on if they're just self-inflicted or if they're actually a problem with the workshop that we've created. However, that is me for this video. I really hope you enjoyed how easy this workshop is compared to our previous workshops. How quick and easy you can just keep coming back and keep going through these commands if you need a little bit more time to develop on how to use the Cscli Ally tool or how to use CrowdSec in forensics mode. But if you do like it, please make sure that you hit the like button. It helps us out massively, especially to know how good our content is and if we need to revisit some topics. Whilst you're down there hitting the like button, make sure you click the subscribe button. The content over this year, we've got loads planned, as well as we've got live events. Live events are going to be announced in the Discord channel, so please make sure you join the Discord. However, that is me. I'm signing off.